out of Cleveland. You want to be a boss? That's how you be a boss. I did. I made a mistake. Hey, good morning. A beautiful Wednesday morning here in the great city of Indianapolis. And before we get going, I got to thank you all for all of the support on Twitter and YouTube. I know the Twitter is up. All right, let's get right into this. I looked this up just before I came on the show, and I wanted to have it right. It's over 6 million. What is over 6 million? The Damar Hamlin GoFundMe for his toy drive has reached over 6 million. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call the power of we. That's right, the power of we. See, in this country, we can do really good things together. But we allow a media to tear us apart. Yesterday, our good friend Greg Doyle put an article in the Indianapolis Star basically saying bad people are questioning whether the COVID vaccine of the Indianapolis 500. There weren't. They opened. It went fine. They also told us after Mitch Daniels, the president, actually came on my show
Welcome into the latest edition of the Trey Wallace podcast. I am Trey Wallace, happy to be joined by Saturday Down South national columnist, correspondent, you name it. He does everything. Connor O'Gara, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's nice to do a little home and home with you. Had you on the Saturday Down South podcast last week, be able to come on your show this week. I feel like there's like a million things that we can talk about as we get into bowl season. So yeah, man, I guess because I went in like 12 different directions with you. So it's only fitting that you probably do the same with me.
No, man, it happens. And we're getting into the crazy part of bowl season. Kind of like, the mid-majors are out of the way. Now we're starting to get some of the bigger games that folks can get excited about towards the future. Starting on like Friday, and you get a nice matchup Friday night with Tennessee Clemson, a couple other matchups scattered, throughout the day, then getting into Saturday. If we're looking outside of Ohio State and Georgia and TCU, Michigan, are there two or three games that stand out to you? They're like, okay, these have little implications towards maybe the 2023 season.
How about South Carolina, Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl? Really interested to see the way that this plays out for Spencer Rattler, somebody who has just had a season that I don't know if there's a recent comp to it where, and man, after those first 10 games, everybody who was low on Spencer Rattler was like, see, this is why this was never going to work. What a horrible decision. South Carolina kind of wasted a year with all these great skill players, a lot of Marcus Satterfield hate. And now, just like that, after the two games that Spencer Rattler had, he's got a chance to do something very unique. And I wonder how that impacts his NFL draft status. I wonder if he is deciding based on how he performs in this game and the feedback that he gets, if he's coming back for another year.
Yeah, I think because things, transitioned from that regime side to that fundamentalist side. So we also had to change some of our tactics and our procedures and everything else and how we did things to cope with these guys because they were coming up with some ingenious ways of doing things along the line as well with some of the IEDs, some of the booby trapping the houses, things like that, using the cell phones to call to detonate everything. So it became, I think, as much as you say, more violent in that way because with the regime guys too, we knew that there was the end state was trying to get Saddam, so that we needed intel as well. We needed to gather that intelligence. There was only so much that was there from previous, just historical data. Then we had to actually make it real intel and workable intel. But with the fundamentalists, if you gave them a chance to vote, and we'd say vote based off, okay, does this guy want to is he going to go along with the capture or is he wanting to fight? And then let's see who wins. They would rather fight than do anything. There was, so many times guys would detonate suicide vests because it's like, well, they're not going to take me, clack themselves off, thinking they're killing, other folks around them. But they just, I don't know, they just were different folks, and it was like we had to get more violent in a way, because again, we were going after intel and doing things, and our procedures and everything on the battlefield just had to kind of adjust, just like they were doing.
That's crazy. I truly cannot imagine. And I was in college. I started college in 2010. So I was in high school when things were getting kind of real bad in the 06, 07 era. And I remember people would always talk about like, do we really need to be fighting these guys? Are they really that bad? And I'm like, this Zarqawi guy's literally chopping people's heads off, right? And don't think it stops there. Like if this guy could, he'd chop all of our heads off too. Fortunately, they dropped a couple bombs on him, I believe, if I recall correctly. So now I want to get into some comparing and contrasting. What
college football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Trey Wallace podcast. I am Trey Wallace, happy to be joined by Saturday Down South national columnist, correspondent, you name it. He does everything. Connor O'Gara, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's nice to do a little home and home with you. Had you on the Saturday Down South podcast last week, be able to come on your show this week. I feel like there's like a million things that we can talk about as we get into bowl season. So yeah, man, I guess because I went in like 12 different directions with you. So it's only fitting that you probably do the same with me.
No, man, it happens. And we're getting into the crazy part of bowl season, kind of like, the mid-majors are out of the way. Now we're starting to get some of the bigger games that folks can get excited about towards the future, starting on like Friday. And you get a nice matchup Friday night with Tennessee, Clemson, a couple other matchups scattered, throughout the day, then getting into Saturday. If we're looking outside of Ohio State and Georgia and TCU, Michigan, are there two or three games that stand out to you? They're like, okay, these have little implications towards maybe the 2023 season.
How about South Carolina, Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl? Really interested to see the way that this plays out for Spencer Rattler, somebody who has just had a season that I don't know if there's a recent comp to it where, and man, after those first 10 games, everybody who was low on Spencer Rattler was like, see, this is why this was never going to work. What a horrible decision. South Carolina kind of wasted a year with all these great skill players, a lot of Marcus Satterfield hate. And now, just like that, after the two games that Spencer Rattler had, he's got a chance to do something very unique. And I wonder how that impacts his NFL draft status. I wonder if he is deciding based on how he performs in this game and the feedback that he gets, if he's coming back for another.
Because things transition from that regime side to that. So we also had to change some of our tactics and our procedures and everything else and how we did things to cope with these guys, because they were coming up with some ingenious ways of doing things along the line as well, with some of the IEDs, some of the, booby trapping the houses, things like that, using the cell phones to call to detonate everything. So it became, I think, as much as you say, more violent in that way, because with the regime guys too, we knew that there was the end state was trying to get Saddam, so that we needed intel as well. We needed to gather that intelligence. There was only so much that was there from previous, just historical data. Then we had to actually make it real intel and workable intel. But with the fundamentalists, if you gave them a chance to vote, and we'd say vote based off, okay, does this guy want to is he going to go along with the capture, or is he wanting to fight? And then let's see who wins. They would rather fight than do anything. There was, so many times guys would detonate suicide vests, because it's like, well, they're not going to take me, clack themselves off, thinking they're killing, other folks around them. But, they just, I don't know, they just were different folks. And it was like we had to get more violent in a way, because again, we were going after intel and doing things, and our procedures and everything on the battlefield just had to kind of adjust, just like they were doing.
That's crazy. I truly cannot imagine. And I was in college. I started college in 2010. So I was in high school when things were getting kind of real bad in the 06, 07 era. And I remember people would always talk about, like, do we really need to be fighting these guys? Are they really that bad? And I'm like, this Zarqawi guy's literally chopping people's heads off, right? And don't think it stops there. Like, if this guy could, he'd chop all of our heads off too. Fortunately, they dropped a couple bombs on him, I believe, if I recall correctly. So now I want to get into some comparing and contrasting.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Well, big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Trey Wallace podcast. I am Trey Wallace, happy to be joined by Saturday Down South national columnist, correspondent, you name it. He does everything. Connor O'Gara, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's nice to do a little home and home with you. Had you on the Saturday Down South podcast last week, be able to come on your show this week. I feel like there's like a million things that we can talk about as we get into bowl season. So yeah, man, I guess because I went in like 12 different directions with you. So it's only fitting that we probably do the same with me.
No, man, it happens. And we're getting into the the crazy part of bowl season, kind of like, the mid majors are out of the way. Now we're starting to get some of the bigger games that folks can get excited about towards the future. Starting on like Friday, and you get a nice matchup Friday night with Tennessee Clemson, a couple other matchups scattered, throughout the day, then getting into Saturday. If we're looking outside of Ohio State and Georgia and TCU, Michigan, are there two or three games that stand out to you? They're like, okay, these have little implications towards maybe the 2023 season.
How about South Carolina, Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl? Really interested to see the way that this plays out for Spencer Rattler, somebody who has just had a season that I don't know if there's a recent comp to it where, man, after those first 10 games, everybody who was low on Spencer Rattler was like, see, this is why this was never going to work. What a horrible decision. South Carolina kind of wasted a year with all these great skill players, a lot of Marcus Satterfield hate. And now, just like that, after the 2 games that Spencer Rattler had, he's got a chance to do something very unique. And I wonder how that impacts his NFL draft status. I wonder if he is deciding based on how he performs in this game and the feedback that he gets, if he's coming back for another year.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Yeah, I think because things, transitioned from that regime side to that fundamentalist side. So we also had to change some of our tactics and our procedures and everything else and how we did things to cope with these guys, because they were coming up with some ingenious ways of doing things along the line as well, with some of the IEDs, some of the, the booby trapping the houses, things like that, using the cell phones to call to detonate everything. So it became, I think, as much as you say, more violent in that way, because with the regime guys too, we knew that there was the end state was trying to get Saddam, so that we needed intel as well. We needed to gather that intelligence. There was only so much that was there from previous, just historical data. Then we had to actually make it real intel and workable intel. But with the fundamentalists, if you gave them a chance to vote, and we'd say vote based off, okay, does this guy want to is he going to go along with the capture, or is he wanting to fight? And then let's see who wins. they would rather fight than do anything. There was, so many times guys would detonate suicide vests because it's like, well, they're not going to take me, clack themselves off, thinking they're killing, other folks around them. But, they just, I don't know, they just were different folks. And it was like we had to get more violent in a way, because again, we were going after intel and doing things and our procedures and everything on the battlefield just had to kind of adjust just like they were doing.
That's crazy. I truly cannot imagine. And I was in college. I started college in 2010. So I was in high school when things were getting kind of real bad in the 06, 07 era. And I remember people would always talk about do we really need to be fighting these guys? Are they really that bad? And I'm like, this Zarqawi guy's literally chopping people's heads off, right? And don't think it stops there. Like if this guy could, he'd chop all of our heads off too. Fortunately, they dropped a couple bombs on him, I believe, if I recall correctly. So now I want to get into some comparing and contrasting.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul?
All right, hey, we're going to discuss more on the Damar Hamlin situation. Live from Cincinnati is our friend Armando Segura, who has been there overnight, over 2 nights. Armando, number one, thank you for joining us. Number two, is there an update on anything going on with Damar Hamlin?
Right. So thanks for having me, Dan. I spoke with his uncle last night, and basically the uncle says that they're just going day to day on this. There is no real huge update. The doctors have basically tried to what they call cool the body to make sure that, there is the highest possible degree of help for the heart and the brain so that the most amount of oxygen reaches the brain and obviously is pumping through the lungs. He's still on a ventilator. He is still in ICU. There was talk of maybe removing the ventilator at some point. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That is not coming from any official source. So where we're at right now is everybody is kind of milling around outside the hospital, and there's vigils going on. There's a church down the street that had a service yesterday. So folks are just being in faith and hoping for the best.
This is a long road. The report was, that he was 100% on the ventilator, now 50% on the ventilator. I think from talking to the uncle, this isn't and the hospital didn't give an update yesterday. This isn't like all of a sudden, boom. This is a long road here, correct?
Yeah, Damar Hamlin is not going to play football again this year. so there's that. And that's not really the priority, to be very frank. The priority is getting him back up and about and having full brain function and having full lung function and having be able to lead a productive, happy life. And then when we cross all those bridges of the many bridges that need to be crossed, maybe there is a miracle afoot. Maybe he can return to play. But like I said, this is not, we're not, that's like step 10,075 and we're at step, 4.
Right. That's, and the first step is saving his life, because I read when you're in critical condition, critical means we got a problem here, right? I mean, the first step is still he's in a life-threatening situation. People, I think, need to understand that.
Right. So until he is off the ventilator and able to breathe on his own, he's not off the ventilator and able to breathe on his own.
Right.
They don't. The reason he is not off that yet is because they don't have 100% confidence that he can do that. That's rough. There's a reason why he is receiving 24/7 care, which is what his uncle said he is getting. And there's a reason why he is in intensive care. So it's one of those things where, it sounds like it's all going in the right direction, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
What is the scene outside the hospital?
Yeah, so this happened to a player who plays for one of the most loyal, faithful fan bases in the Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia. Those people, they have a connection to their team that I'm not sure every team in the NFL or anywhere in any league has to their team. These people live, breathe, eat Bills football. And so they were there at the hospital moments after, Damar Hamlin was rolled in via ambulance. And I know this because I was there. And they've been there throughout. They've erected a sort of a memorial to him, a shrine. They've got a Bills flag there. They've got Bills paraphernalia on the corner of Piedmont and Bellevue Avenues right outside the hospital. People come, they talk amongst themselves, they pray, they sing, they basically support. And so that is obviously part of the scene. And of course, there's a bunch of media, including myself at times, not right now, but oftentimes. We're just waiting. We're waiting for word. And yesterday, Hamlin's aunts came out to see the memorial, and some Bills fans, hugged them up. And obviously his uncle was outside as well. So it's interesting. It's for the last couple of days, it's been not cold, but cool and very rainy, a steady rain. Today it's better. So there might be more people.
Is there any update from the NFL other than they're not going to play that game this week?
There is no update as of this moment today. The not going to play that game this week. That was yesterday, and it was obvious. The Cincinnati Bengals have a game to play this coming weekend, and guess what? The Buffalo Bills have a game to play this coming weekend. And so you cannot ask them to play when? Tomorrow?
Right.
And then again, Sunday? That's just not done. So the NFL isn't going there at this moment. There's a lot of speculation of moving the season back a week. I don't know how that would work out because they've got schedule set up for the playoffs, and they're going to start when they're going to start. So, and both of these teams are playoff teams. They already have qualified. So this was a game that was going to decide seeding, Dan. You know, the Kansas City Chiefs right now are the top seeded team in the AFC. The Buffalo Bills behind them and the Cincinnati Bengals behind them. Had the Bengals beaten the Bills, they could have a shot at the number 1 seed.
What do you see? How do you see this whole deal playing out? A lot of people are calling for let's cancel the games this weekend. A lot of people are saying what you said. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, the games this weekend are not going to be canceled. They're going to be played. That's how it's going to play out. You know, people can call for whatever they want to. Doesn't mean anyone's going to answer their call. I understand and I wholly agree with the idea of this was a terrible, terrible moment in a game. And there was no way that you could ask the players who witnessed what they witnessed, and it was a terrible scene, who witnessed that should be asked to, okay, guys, you just saw this. He's your guy. He's your brother in arms, so to speak. Now go and forget about it and play on. And it's like, wow, really? And let me just say this, Dan. We and a lot of players, they parallel football and the game to battle. You know, there's a lot of war analogies that are spoken of. Let's go to battle. Let's fight. Let's, you know, all this stuff, blitz and stuff like that. All war terms. Football's not a battle. Okay, it's a game. They had an injury in the game, and it rose to the level of the game is over. We're postponing. In a real battle, guys are killed, and they don't postpone the battle. It really makes me respect what the armed services, what the military, and what we ask those people to do for us, because they don't get a moment to, you know, to process. They don't get mental health professionals helping them at, you know, the next day. They have to fight on. And it just is stunning to me that that they are able to do that. And it's also very gratifying to me that we're not asking, and we don't have to ask the football players to do that.
You know, that's well said. And the other thing that I would say is, my God, what an unbelievable job. You mentioned it yesterday. 8 people at one time were working on Damar Hamlin, one taking his face mask off, CPR, you know, all that. And the pressure that was on those people in front of the world to run out there and perform not only what's the right way? Well, to save a life. I mean, let's be honest, to save a life. That honest to God, I said this yesterday. You can talk about making a field goal or getting a base hit or hitting a free throw, but that's saving a life in front of the entire world. I don't think we can say enough how special those people are.
Right. And you got to understand. So those folks are trained to run the gamut of all the injuries and all the possibilities, right? And let's be honest, there are more gruesome injuries than what we saw. You have a compound fracture where a bone is sticking out of the skin and there's blood gushing out. That's something no one ever wants to see, but those happen in the NFL and have happened. The most notable of which probably is Joe Theismann. Having said that, this young man collapsing was indeed life-threatening. His life was on the line. He was out and he was not breathing. So that is as serious as it gets. It don't get no more serious than that. And these folks, they rushed out there in waves, and they kept coming and coming. and they all had a job and they all did their job. I likened it yesterday to like a pit stop crew. They all were doing something to help, and they helped because as we speak here today, Damar Hamlin, although he is on a ventilator, he is alive.
No, that's it. Really well said. And, let me ask you, because we touched on it a little bit yesterday, and a friend of mine who's with the NFL said, if you're going to have, and you are going to probably be in as good a place as you could possibly be being in an NFL stadium, given all that is at an NFL stadium. You know what I mean? It's almost like a mini trauma center.
I don't hear you.
Right. So, Dan, we're getting different crosstalk here. I'm not sure exactly what you
I
said.
said was, if you're going to have the situation that Damar Hamlin said, a friend of mine in the NFL texted me last night. He watched our show, and we were talking, I think you and I were talking about how it's basically a mini trauma center, every NFL stadium.
Right. So the NFL has, its emergency action plan, and they have ambulances at the stadium. They have, obviously, the medical professionals at the stadium. They have an airway physician. So they've got people who are experts at intubating people, at making sure that people breathe. And so, and they rehearse these plans at least once a year. And it's pretty impressive to see that plan in action the other night. Look, if Damar Hamlin had this episode walking down the street, and I don't know that could have happened because I don't know that he would be hitting anyone walking down the street. But if he had this episode in a random place, I'm not sure he would have made it. If you're going to have this episode, there's an NFL field at an NFL stadium during an NFL game. That's the place to have it. That's the place to have that emergency because the pit crew was there immediately.
Yeah, and that's, we always want to criticize. That's what we do, Roger Goodell. But I think you got to give great credit to the preparation here. I think that needs to be spoken more, whether it's the NFLPA in conjunction with doctors, in conjunction with the NFL, whatever your personal feelings are about Roger Goodell or DeMaurice Smith or whomever, you got to at least give them credit for saying, wait a second here. This preparation, this pit crew, as you called it, saved the daggone life, and good for them for having this set up, or at least saved the life as we know it so far.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of hand-wringing and so forth and criticism about how long it took the NFL to make a decision about whether or not to cancel the game or postpone the game. That is kind of secondary. There were no lives at risk at that point, and they, I think, reached the right decision. The critical time factor was getting to Damar Hamlin and helping Damar Hamlin live. And in that regard, they hit on all cylinders, scored 100% far as I can see. There was no delay. There was no indecision. They got it right. And that is the story. That's the lead. It's not, well, they took 30 minutes to decide whether to cancel the game. No one's life was at risk at that point in those locker rooms. The guy whose life was at risk, that was handled immediately.
I agree. I'm so tired of hearing the criticism of how long it took. I mean, God dang, I don't care. You saved a life. You let everything settle down. You talk to the teams. You talk to the coaches. And then you made a decision, the right decision, in my opinion. Wrong decision maybe to somebody else, but in my opinion, the right decision. Armando, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for the update, man. That's great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
That's our friend Armando Segura, who is right there. He is in Cincinnati. And, man, this is why Outkick is so great. Now, you're looking at me and you're saying, what the hell are you doing, Dan? Well, what Dan is doing is I got a power outage at my house. I've got all kind of texts coming in. So we're going to talk to Dr. David Cho and see what he has to say, sports doctor, and see what he says caused. I got a lot of people saying, well, it's caused by this or that. I don't know. I want to hear from a doctor. I'm tired of sports writers and sports casters. We'll come back. We'll hear from a doctor in a moment. If you're looking at this and you're wondering, you know what? Get over it. We got a great show for you. Dr. David Chow is a sports doctor. All right, in your professional opinion, I'm tired of hearing from writers and broadcasters and everybody else. What do you think happened here with Damar Hamlin?
Yeah, before I jump right into that, Dan, I heard the segment with Armando, and he did a great job. Pretty much everything he was saying is what I was saying in real time immediately as on the field and that night when there was no information, talking about the great job of the medical staffs, the 24 people, and the quick reaction saving his life. That is really great. And before we get to what caused it, which is obviously the next chapter, and thanks for having me on here, I kind of want to make a little bit of a plea. If the quick reaction is what did it, and we're going to talk about commotio cordis and other things and some of the sudden death things, and some of the other examples, Christian Eriksen, Chris Pronger, who, were saved with quick action. To me, we should do better with this. It's great we're donating to Toy Drive. This is a call to have an athletic trainer at every high school and even middle school event, and certainly in college. This sudden death thing is most common in the younger population. And not only do you need an athletic trainer there, not just football games, hockey games, lacrosse games, even soccer games, but you need an AED device and not locked up in the nurse's office a mile away. And it doesn't happen very often. Look at the NFL. This is a one in a more than a million thing. I mean, as a former head team physician, we drilled this every training camp for 2 decades, and it never happened. We had one chain gang member pass out. We dealt with that, but this stuff never happened. We never utilized our true emergency action plan in 2 decades, and the NFL has it. But when you do, and the compliments that you're giving, I say not a couple things to take away, then we'll get to the cause and things. I'm sorry for hijacking this. Number one, let's take out of this, you need the medical personnel at the younger ages in high school and colleges too, with an AED. That's how you can potentially save lives. The other side thing is, and you're right, about complimenting the NFL and the Bengals athletic training, medical staff, and the Bills, and really league-wide. Look, they drilled forever all around the league and look, it's like you practice this play one time in a walkthrough in preseason, and you never run this play for decades. And then the one time you have to run it, you got to score a touchdown. And I think they did, right? This was like Philly special done in a walkthrough one time a year and never run. And then you run it in the Super Bowl and you get the touchdown or the et cetera. And I'm not trying to trivialize this, but for everybody who has sometimes rightly complained, sometimes wrongly, about the concussion protocol, I don't care who you are, that if you've ever complained about it, right or wrong, in any way, shape, or form, or talked about it, you should give kudos to the NFL for being over-prepared on this one. Now, back to your question of what it is. I don't want to speculate as to the details and whatever. And full disclosure, I was a head team physician in the NFL, but I'm an orthopedist. I'm not a cardiologist, but I've consulted a lot with the primary care doctors. We supervise them and so forth. And I've talked to some heart specialists, one in particular at the University of Ottawa Heart Institute, Dr. Grau, a friend of mine. But in any case, in real time, we knew that it was hard. And I wasn't trying to be heartless. I mean, in real time when it happened, I put up a tweet saying, the hit didn't look that bad, right? And they came back from commercial and you saw him stand up and then fall down. Immediately you knew that was cardiac. That wasn't his head. Why? His heart, quote, stopped beating correctly at the moment of impact. And so why was he able to get up? Because there's still residual blood in your brain and oxygenation. So usually it takes about 4 seconds. So he got hit, stopped, he got up, stood up for a second or two, and then collapsed down. That timing was cardiac. And that's why I tweeted immediately, this is about the player. This is not about the game. There's a heart issue here. And I had no idea at the time it was going to CPR and the whole life-saving stuff and life support stuff that happened. And I got to admit, Dan, I was a little freaked out by it because it's never happened to me. I felt helpless watching on TV. I almost didn't even wade in because I mean, what's an orthopedist doing wading in? But I started talking about everything Armando just talked about, all the medical personnel and how there's help and the action plan and the whole deal and the airway physician. And thankfully, everything continues to go in the right direction. Yesterday on Outkick 360, I talked about the ambulance stopping in the tunnel was a good sign. The Buffalo Bills indicating that his heart was restarted on the field was a great sign. And to this morning, there's still some more good little signs. As long as we're trending in the right direction, that's all we want. And our focus is on him being extubated, breathing too out, maybe today. Hopefully, doesn't have to be, but let's hope. But just a little baby step every day. It's like the stock market. As long as it's a little bit, it's up and down, but it's a little bit just trending in the right direction, we're good. We don't need to double our money overnight, right? I mean, so to speak. And that's what we want to see out of Damar Hamlin. And I'm still cautiously optimistic that we will. Now, as for the cause, here's the thing. This is not Chris Pronger, NHL person, 1998 or 9. He tweeted about it. He took a puck. There's talk about commotio cordis. I might have started that a little bit because I mentioned it early. Commotio cordis is a weird phenomenon where you literally could be a Little League baseball player and you get hit in the exact right spot in the chest at the exact right millisecond of the EKG wave. And we're not going to get into QRS and T components and waves and whatever. But then it sets the electrical system in your heart awry and basically is like a heart attack. Very weird, like struck by lightning type thing. Not very common. That happened to Chris Pronger. And he was revived, resuscitated, went on to a 12-year NHL Hall of Fame career. And I saw reports that he played in missing just 2 games, which is just unbelievable. But this is not pure commotio cordis. Commotio cordis may have had a part in it. Christian Eriksen, the Denmark soccer player at Euros 2020, I guess, when he collapsed, I wrote an Outkick that his career wasn't over and he could come back to play, and AED saved him. He's now back to play. That was sudden cardiac arrest, which is also different. To the lay public, they're all the same. No, they're not. This Damar Hamlin is worse. He took a big blow to the chest. He's going to have a cardiac and or lung contusion, something in addition to potentially this commotio cordis. But there's no question it was the blow that got him in the unlucky right place, right time. And if you look at it, sometimes we see plays, and I do video analysis and so forth. Sometimes you see plays where you got jacked, like a blindside block, and the guy goes flying into the air and it looks fantastic. But that's actually in some ways better because the energy dissipates in his body flying, in a yard sale type thing. This guy took it all in the chest and absorbed it. If you go look really close at the replay, the energy didn't dissipate. Sometimes if you get thrown from the car in a car accident, you're better off, right, than taking all the blow with the chest against the steering wheel, so to speak. So that's, and I'll let you lead the discussion, Dan. I didn't mean to
Doc, I got you on to hear your opinion. I know my opinion is mine. You're the expert. I do want to go, we live in a world where immediately, and I didn't notice this because my wife did. She's like, Dan, all of a sudden this is being politicized. The vaccine, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, honest to God, I mean, and I want to get to your point on something before I get into that, or you can get into that. I always use 2 plays. When Dale Earnhardt crashed and died, to your point, we had seen far worse crashes. We see far worse crashes. And Bo Jackson's hip, we've seen far worse moves. So to your point of, hey, look, something that maybe looked a little innocuous is more dangerous. Those are the 2 things that I go to. And then the other thing, can you dispel all this vaccine and all this crazy political stuff?
Let me dispel 2 things for you. First of all, the vaccine stuff. Why are we leaping to that? I mean, medically speaking, look, anything's possible. We don't know anything, right? I'm on the outside, okay? If you're going to the vaccine stuff, it's more likely that if he had a flu or COVID and had myocarditis, and I don't know that he had either, and this is pure speculation, that myocarditis irritability of the heart muscle would be potentially significantly more likely to contribute to this than the vaccine from what we know. But I'm not trying to take sides. I'm not even trying to speculate it's related to myocarditis, okay?
Right.
So it's out there. You could speculate a lot of different things. You could speculate that, he had an aortic dissection. You could speculate he had this or that, a genetic component. And all. There's all sorts of speculation. I'm not here to speculate, but you wanted me to dispel that. I don't see that as a forefront issue and not something that is that realistic. It's more realistic to blame it on myocarditis than it is to the vaccine, but let's not go there. The other thing that you and Armando talked about that I want to dispel, the ambulance crew, look, everyone focuses on the ambulance, but you got to focus on the ground. What you didn't see, and thankful to ESPN you didn't see it, is you didn't see him actively doing CPR on the field, but the players saw it. And that's why I said there is no way they're restarting this game unless they know he's okay. And so that's why on Twitter last night or the night before, I was like, I hope they restart this game. Not for the game, but that means they know behind the scenes he's okay. There's no way they're taking the field. He says, okay, there's no way they're taking the field unless this guy who got carted off on a spine board and collar didn't give the thumbs up, right? You're going to be shooken by that. And I'll bet very few of your viewers and followers have ever seen someone do CPR live or get defibrillated live, much less a friend and a colleague. I mean, look, there's a reason why the stadium was deathly silent. There's a reason why the stadium, you didn't hear one boo when they called the game. They saw it too. We didn't see it, right? Because ESPN, when they went back, rightfully, there was the barrier and it was a distance view, and you never saw any of that. But it is unbelievable. And to the point about the ambulance being slow, not only do I not care about the paramedics who were being slow, they were absolutely 100% correct in doing what they did. Look, the visual for the lay public is scoop and go. You're inside the ambulance, you're good. Well, then you're out of sight, but that doesn't mean you're good. Besides the principles of stabilizing first, okay? Now, if you have no way to stabilize, okay, you may have to scoop and go, okay? If you're out in a cornfield, yeah, put them in the ambulance. And guess what? The ambulance doesn't drive. It's working on you in the little mini OR. It doesn't drive because you need the driver to help. But what's better, to be in an ambulance with maybe 2-3 people at most, or on the field with 24 medical professionals, 2 AEDs, oxygen, medical bag, IVs, and all the help? They did the right thing. And not only am I saying they didn't do the wrong thing by, quote, delaying, they weren't delaying, they were working. Kudos to all of that. That one I can 1,000% dispel right here, right now, and hopefully forever. No criticism there at all, only compliments.
Doc, I talked about what you just said yesterday. I said, I'm listening to it on the radio as I'm driving. You're watching it on TV, but the players are right there. They're seeing what is going on. Will we, down the road, and there's a lot of bridges to get over here, will we know definitively what happened here to Damar Hamlin?
Look, here's what I want to know definitively. Dan, I love your stuff, and I'd be happy to come on. But you can see it's a surgery morning from here. We can get another time in the next case to come on. But I don't care about knowing what it is right now. I think we will find out. I don't care about football. I don't care about that playoff schedule. I want him to get extubated, breathing tube out, maybe today or as soon as possible. I want word that he's going to be for sure survive, which I, hopeful, and for sure leave a normal life and be able to hug and kiss his mom. And then we can talk about what caused it and other prevention and other things and so forth. So far, we're in the right direction. And this story isn't going away, right? But I appreciate you. And I don't mean to cut you off. I just, got to run a little bit.
You got to go. Hey, appreciate you. Thanks, Doc.
But I'll come back anytime. Just let me know. Later today, this, that, the other, okay? I just,
gotcha, man.
I can't leave the patient here, okay?
You got to go. You got to go. You got to go. Thank you, sir. Right. I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I've ever interviewed anybody that had to go because they were a doctor in the doctor's ward. But hey, look, the doc's got to go. All right, we're going to come back. If you're wondering why we're doing it like this, because we feel like it. How about that? All right, when we come back, Allison Williams is going to discuss Jim Harbaugh, excuse me. She's covered Jim Harbaugh. My internet may be back. My TV's back on. Hold the phone. We'll go to break. We'll be right back.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Trey Wallace podcast. I am Trey Wallace, happy to be joined by Saturday Down South national columnist, correspondent, you name it. He does everything. Connor O'Gara, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's nice to do a little home and home with you. Had you on the Saturday Down South podcast last week, be able to come on your show this week. I feel like there's like a million things that we can talk about as we get into bowl season. So yeah, man, I guess because I went in like 12 different directions with you. So it's only fitting that we probably do the same with me.
No, man, it happens. And we're getting into the crazy part of bowl season, kind of like, the mid-majors are out of the way. Now we're starting to get some of the bigger games that folks can get excited about towards the future. Starting on like Friday, and you get a nice matchup Friday night with Tennessee Clemson, a couple other matchups scattered, throughout the day, then getting into Saturday. If we're looking outside of Ohio State and Georgia and TCU, Michigan, are there 2 or 3 games that stand out to you? They're like, okay, these have little implications towards maybe the 2023 season.
How about South Carolina, Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl? Really interested to see the way that this plays out for Spencer Rattler, somebody who has just had a season that I don't know if there's a recent comp to it where, man, after those first 10 games, everybody who was low on Spencer Rattler was like, see, this is why this was never going to work. What a horrible decision. South Carolina kind of wasted a year with all these great skill players, a lot of Marcus Satterfield hate. And now, just like that, after the 2 games that Spencer Rattler had, he's got a chance to do something very unique. And I wonder how that impacts his NFL draft status. I wonder if he is deciding based on how he performs in this game and the feedback that he gets, if he's coming back for another year.
The uber talented Allison Williams joins us. Allison, back on the sidelines for Fox Football. A-Dubs, I got to ask you a question. Jim Harbaugh, and you've covered Harbaugh for a long time. Jim Harbaugh has been rumored, in fact, yesterday talked to the owner of the Carolina Panthers. Would you be surprised if Jim Harbaugh took off and went to the NFL like a lot of these reports are saying?
I wouldn't be surprised by anything Jim Harbaugh does, because of all college football coaches I have ever worked with, he is by far the most unpredictable. He is wildly inconsistent in his treatment of the media, in his engagement with them. And that's the one thing that I always I have a tough time with, because I'm like, most people you could say, all right, you're a jerk, you're not a jerk, like put them in their pile and go about your merry way and you know how to deal with them. But Harbaugh, sometimes he's so wonderful and accommodating and talkative and gregarious. And other times he'll just completely shut you down and want nothing to do with you. So no, nothing would surprise me with Harbaugh. I would be really disappointed for Michigan fans. I'm from that neck of the woods, and seeing what he's been able to do there and restore that program. And after kind of a tumultuous start, right? I mean, and they showed him a lot of patience, I think. For him to up and leave would be disappointing. But I mean, can't ever blame anybody for doing what they feel like they need to do. And if he still has something to prove in the NFL and wants to go back, so be it. But no, I would not be surprised.
It's interesting. You are from there. You have covered him. Tom Crean is his brother-in-law. Tom came on our show, and Tom said, and referencing what you had just said a few years ago, it didn't look good. He actually thought Harbaugh did that he might have lost his job a couple years ago. That's real when the coach actually thinks that, according to his brother-in-law.
Yeah. And I think that obviously if Tom says it, it's certainly true, but there were a lot of questions and options being floated around Michigan. When you don't beat Ohio State and you don't beat Michigan State and you don't win the Big Ten and you're the University of Michigan, your job's going to be on the line. And I'm sure his was for a moment or two. And like I said, the university showed him some patience, fans stuck by him, and he's been able to turn this thing around. And in this day and age, we know how rare that is for either side of any sort of patience. So maybe he feels like, look, I did what I promised I would do, and I got it right. And, we've been to the playoff in back-to-back years. I'm sure, though, he would feel like he's this close, right? I mean, you're so close. You've got your quarterback coming back and a lot of good pieces coming back. Why not give it one more run and try to finish the thing for real and win a national title? But obviously, opportunities in the NFL don't come along all that often. That maybe would be the right fit for you. So perhaps that's the direction he goes. But yeah, it's certainly been an interesting run with Michigan throughout his tenure there, no question. And it's definitely in a much better spot than it was, 3-4 years ago, even.
This is an unfair question to ask you, particularly since I text you before and say, hey, I'm going to ask you this question, but you are from there. You are in college football. I always say this, a couple things. Be careful what you wish for in coaching. Mm-hmm. Be careful what you wish for. I'm a Michigan fan. Is there somebody that, and the second thing is you always got to replace the guy like Harbaugh Lee, you got to replace him. Is there a guy that Michigan fans would say, all right, I don't want Harbaugh to leave. He's done a great job here, particularly last couple of years. But if we got so-and-so, that would be pretty good, assuming that so-and-so isn't Urban Meyer.
Well, no, it's not going to be Urban because it's got to be a Michigan man, right? That's prerequisite number one. How about this? How about Tom Brady, instead of going to the booth, comes out of retirement and heads to University of Michigan? That would be a name that's like, all right, cool. Yeah. We'll get behind Brady. Otherwise, nobody off, no realistic option off the top of my head comes to mind. That's the thing that's tricky. And I wonder, too, how much that helped Harbaugh save his job when it was on the line a few years ago, is that question of, okay, if not, then who? Who are realistic candidates that we could replace them with that we'd feel like are a true upgrade? And with Michigan, it's a very prestigious and coveted job, but it's a very particular one. There's a certain fit that has to take place at that university. And they will 9 times out of 10 want somebody that is cut from the University of Michigan cloth. So off the top of my head, to think of anybody that would fit that, I think would be really, really tough. I used to joke that I think a Luke Fickell should go there and just stick it to Ohio State. I mean, now obviously, he's gone a different direction in the Big Ten, but that would be a tough job to fill. Like you said, you never want to be the guy that replaces the guy, and that would be the case if you were to go a different direction with Jim Harbaugh?
I text Urban all the time. Harbaugh leaves. Let's go. Let's go.
I have to tell you, I was with Urban for, when we went from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten championship, and we did this Discover Lounge fan fest thing at the Big Ten championship. I've never seen a poor man get booed more by Michigan fans. Like it was almost kind of mean.
We were on the sideline. Big noon kickoff went to the Michigan game. And he was staying at my house. So my stepson and I drove down there, and we stood the second half on the sideline, or in the end zone, actually, Urban, myself, and Jared. And the Michigan fans were right over here, right? There was two things that they said. In the first half, when Michigan wasn't playing well, boo, Urban, you stink, come coach Michigan. And then when Michigan won, and they won going away, it was, boo, Urban, you stink, we hate you, blah, 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 blah. But I do think, and to the point, I do think, and you make a really good point here, when Michigan lowered his salary, and they took away, and Harbaugh agreed to it a few years ago after Urban had gone 7-0 and all that kind of stuff, there had to be a thinking at Michigan, we don't want to lose this guy. We got to show that we're not happy with him, but who in the hell would we get in here? Because Michigan is unique in that vein.
Yeah, and there's a handful of programs that you have to ask that about. And again, so like I look at it kind of like the Auburn dynamic a few years ago. It's like they become obsessed with beating Alabama and Nick Saban, right? And every time they would lose him, it was fire the coach, regardless of what Gus had done. And I'm like, okay, but who are you going to get that gives you a better shot at beating Nick Saban? And so they get Brian Harsin, and we all know how that worked out, right? And that's kind of like the Michigan thing, I think, a few years ago. It's like, okay, you're upset with Harbaugh. Obviously, you want him to beat Ohio State. He hasn't, but who are you going to go get that's going to give you a better shot at beating Urban Meyer and Ohio State? And that's the question teams have to ask themselves. Like, look at what's going on with Ryan Day right now. I mean, and all the criticism he's receiving and what he's been able to do in his tenure, replacing Urban. And that wasn't an easy spot to step into with, again, replacing somebody that's had a ton of success. And he's been phenomenal. And yet fans are critical, right? I mean, they're never happy. So that's the thing you really have to sit down and ask yourself is, who do we have that we feel like can truly upgrade us at the position that will be a right fit? And fit matters in college, I think, more than the NFL, because you have to deal with the boosters, you have to deal with the university as a whole, and the community are such a bigger tie with the community, and so many more people to please. So there has to be a fit component at any university, and especially at a place, like an Ohio State, like a Michigan, Auburn, Alabama, these marquee, these big time blue blood programs where the expectations are going to be high no matter what's happened previously. And there's a lot to manage. I was just talking to a former offensive coordinator that switched over to the pros. And I was like, well, what's the biggest difference? He's like, I don't have as many people to please. I'm not trying to please parents. I'm not trying to please boosters. I'm not trying to please the president, like all these different people that you're trying to make happy. He's like, who I have to keep happy? The head guy in my room. And that's it. That's it. So it's a different dynamic at these schools and universities.
You cover these kids, okay? You cover players. And I was having a conversation with my son yesterday about Patrick McCaffrey. I don't know if you saw this, but Patrick McCaffrey, Fran's son, who battled cancer, is taking time away because of mental health issues, stress, anxiety. And I said something to my son like, you know what? I don't know. Are people softer? He goes, Dad. He goes, it is horrible being a college athlete right now because of social media. It's impossible. It's like everybody has their own newspaper and they write about you on their social media. Mike Woodson yesterday came out and said, man, I wish I could get my players off social media, the head coach at Indiana. And he said, I can't because it's part of who they are. You're around these guys. I'm not. What is your take on the impact of mental health relative to athletes by social media?
Oh, I think it's been huge. It gives people a direct pathway to them. And I think it's human nature to want to please and to be liked. And obviously, these guys want to perform at a high level for multiple reasons. And when you have this platform where people can reach them, and as much as you try to ignore it, some of it gets through, whether it's through a friend or through an uncle, or, you click the app mention and you don't need to, and you see these things, it gets to them and they're human. And I think it is a completely different era than what you probably played in, than what a lot of coaches experience. And then the other component that I really think changes everything, and maybe it's not as much in the mental health aspect, but I think as far as a pressure to perform that's different, is the NIL component. I mean, when guys are making this kind of money, more money, more problems, right? And it creates another layer of something else to deal with besides just going out and playing. And I think it's not just, and I will say too, I don't think it's just a mental health component of social media for athletes. I think it's for all young people, because when you can quantify like how likable you are, I mean, the worst thing that would happen to us is when you wouldn't get invited to a party or something. Now it's like, well, Kara over here got 120 likes and I only got 50, and I'm not as cute, or I'm not as desirable, I'm not as worthy, I'm not as liked. And it's like a quantifiable component, right? Like you can actually assign a number to it. That's weird. Like that's a component of popularity that we never had to deal with, especially at a young age, that people could literally like or not like something you put out there, instead of just wondering if they like you or if they're going to invite you, to their bowling party. Like those are the things we had to deal with. This is on a different mass level. And then you have a money component too, even with the social media stuff, whether it's TikTok or whatever, people can monetize it. That creates a powered, weird dynamic as well. And now we see it at the college level with the NIL stuff. I think it's a very difficult road to navigate, and I think we need to be more cognizant of that and more open to helping players and just young people in general navigate it.
Andrew asked me. He said, "Okay, what was it like?" I go, I turned the ball over in the Elite Eight. People threw eggs at our window at our apartment, and he goes, "What'd you do?" I go, "I just left the eggs there." I mean, like, hey,
well, can you imagine like what that kicker at Ohio State? His time? I mean, like, he probably can't open his phone.
You can't open your phone. You can't go out. I said this. You have young children.
Mm-hmm.
I would caution my son and my daughter. I don't want you to be a kicker. I don't give a damn what you are. I always told my daughter, you can't work the pole. You can't be a stripper. And anytime I would go to Vegas and I'd be like, take a picture, send it to her, stay in school. You're not working the pole. And
no posts, no polls.
My son, no kicker. Because I'm telling you, it is, you mess something up back in the day, stays with you, but it goes away. This Google, it doesn't go away. It's never going away. And that sucks for everybody involved with that kicker.
Yeah. And it's like you're either the highest of high or the lowest of low. Like there's no in between road for kickers.
No.
And it can change in a week to week basis. I mean, like Rodrigo Blankenship was like the god of kickers and like could do no wrong at Georgia. They missed a couple kicks against South Carolina, and everybody was calling for him. Like Griffin Kell at TCU has been the savior of a few games. So guess what? If he misses a kick on Monday, that's all they're going to talk about. They're not going to talk about what he did against Baylor. So you're right. There is no lonelier place to be than a kicker that has missed a field goal. And I think what was the moment? Oh my gosh, with the kicker this year, and he missed, and the quarterback came over. Oh, BYU, and Hall and that kid, and like how he comforted the kicker because he knew what a lonely, terrible spot that is to be. Yes, I'm with you. I don't know if I'll let my son play football. Period. But if he is, definitely not a kicker.
I remember kicking Tirico doing a game, and Andrew's getting in the game, and I'm like kicking Tirico under the tables. Nobody knows. I'm grabbing him on, my left hand is grabbing him on the leg, like, just, hey, good play, okay, But it is so much worse than playing or coaching. I cannot even. But a kicker, All right, let's go to the game Monday night. TCU, you mentioned. I'm a big Max Duggan fan. I think the country is. I'm a big Stetson Bennett fan. I'm a big Jalen Carter fan. I mean, hell, I think it's a great matchup because these two teams are fun.
I agree. I said to my family, because we were all watching that Michigan game together, and I was like, I feel bad. I'm kind of like, I wasn't pulling for TCU because I was with so many Michigan people. I want them to have a good time. But I kind of love that team. I covered them, I think, 3 times this year. Max Duggan is an absolute warrior. He is everything you want in a quarterback, in a son. He is stuck by TCU through the ups and the downs. He freaking loves that university. Like, I had his final home game, which you'd think would be his final home game. And he was quick to correct me. He's like, well, I could come back. Like, he absolutely loves TCU. He is what you want. He's what college football is about to me. Like, nothing's been handed to him. He was highly recruited out of high school, but he still had to work his tail off. He had to earn his job, even this year, mid-season, didn't, start the season as a quarterback. And all he's done is work and keep his head down and grind. He comes from an awesome family in Iowa. Got a chance to chat with them a little bit. So I absolutely love Max Duggan. But the thing with TCU, and I was kind of talking to my family about that, I'm like, they're so fast. Yes. You don't realize their team speed is so elite, especially on defense. I mean, Quentin Johnson's like a freak on offense, but their team speed is so elite that they can make up for a lot of mistakes. Like, they have a lot of erasers on the field on defense. Now, I know Georgia is special and they're physical and all that stuff. But there is something to be said about the speed that TCU plays with on both sides of the ball that I think it is going to make for a really good matchup against Georgia.
You know what's interesting to me, and you being around Michigan fans, my view of Michigan was, all right, we're big, we're strong, we're tough, we're fast, but we're physical. On the toughness deals, 3 times inside, first and goal, only 3 points. When Michigan made a run, TCU did something interesting. They ran the football and stuck it right to Michigan, those are toughness plays. Yep. I think people are underselling the toughness of TCU.
Yeah, you're probably right. In the goal line stands that they had against Michigan, there were multiple instances. You're right. When you think, okay, this is the more physical team, this is where they'll win. And TCU stood up time and time against that test. What a phenomenal game, though, huh? I mean, just start to finish. It was such a good game. And that was what was awesome, too, to see both of those games be so entertaining. We haven't really had that in the semifinals a lot of years. But I was super stoked for TCU, just for their fans. They kind of have like this underdog chip on their shoulder deal. But you're right. I mean, they answered Michigan's physicality time and time again when they had to throughout that night.
Who wins?
So I will say I'm going to stick with TCU just because Hypnotoad, like, let's do it. They've had this magical little run all season long. I was talking to some guys I did a radio interview with in the season. I'm like, they just kind of feel destined to do this. Like, every time you count them out, they rise up. They've won in every different way. They've always found a way. So why not one more time? Yeah, I'm going TCU.
I got to tell you, people that, and we've talked about it, people that think this is a cute little story. Yeah, it is. But this is fast. This is tough. This is a big-time quarterback.
And they believe.
They got big belief, right? They got huge belief.
Mm-hmm. And Max Duggan will will them in any which way. He is a special dude at quarterback. And not to take anything away from Stetson Bennett and his remarkable story. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had that loss in the Big 12 championship game, but other than that, it's been a pretty magical season. So keep it going, Horned Frogs. I don't know how to do that hand thing, though. They do. Yeah. It's like that weird little.
Can I say, I think that's creepy.
I do too.
What am I doing here?
It's like this weird twister knuckles around. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Hypnotoad.
In my life, I try not to do creepy anymore because old man, it's not.
It didn't work for you earlier in your life. Please stop.
It was fine. But now, no. But I see people doing that, and I'm like, yeah, I ain't doing it. All right. Let's send people to your show because Jonathan Isaacs. At least I know you interviewed him a long time ago. But damn, he made me feel bad about myself. That dude.
Yeah, that might be like a common theme of all the guys. They'll kind of make you feel bad about yourself because Jonathan Isaac is like this picture of perfection within his faith and everything he's achieved at such a young age and how he lives his life. And then you've got Enes Kanter, who is pretty much sacrifice his entire career and reputation and so forth because he's doing the right thing and standing up for oppressed peoples. We've got Nick Rolovich, who I think I probably related to more than anybody, just with what he went through and what he gave up, standing up for his beliefs. And then you've got Dana White, who like came from nothing and was just a total badass and will kick your ass and has made himself a near billionaire, but is cool as shit and just down to earth. So it's called Breakaways. It's available on Daily Wire, Daily Wire Plus, and I would appreciate people checking it out. I think more than anything with our time and our money, it's a vote. And the more we support organizations that are aligned with values that we hold dear, the better off I think we'll be as a country, and prove that there is still a voice for people who believe in some certain values and family values and morality as we knew it a few years ago. That seems to be disappearing a bit. But yeah, it's called Breakaways. I think it's the production quality was phenomenal. Like from my experience, it was so first class. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate all the behind the scenes work that went into it. And I think people will find it entertaining and maybe, force them to ask some questions themselves and kind of about our country and sports and where we're at with this whole mess of a life.
Yeah, no, I got to tell you, I watched the one with Isaacs and it's like a Barbara Walters special. Rest in peace. I mean, the quality is great, and everything, the questions, the answers is fantastic. All right, I got to run. I wish you were doing basketball.
Me too. I wish you were doing basketball.
Yeah, I do too. But you know what? I'm done at 11 every day. I got to go put after the show and go do.
Hey, that never stopped you from doing basketball either. Okay, let's be real.
Thanks, A-Dubs.
You're the best. See you, Dakich.
I love talking to Allison Williams. She is freaking awesome and even better to work with. All right. Apparently my internet is back on. I'm going to push a button here and see what's going on. So maybe we'll be back on the live view stream. What a shot that was. All right. We'll be right back.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Hey, we've had some problems. We ain't mad about it. What a great show we had today. Don't at me. Always rocking and rolling. You know, reports are it's a done deal that Jim Harbaugh could end up leaving Michigan and, ladies and gentlemen, end up at one of maybe three places now. One of them is the Denver Broncos. A lot of people are speculating there because of money. A lot of people also think because of love, he could end up with the Colts. I don't know, but yesterday he talked to David Tepper, who is the owner of the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people in Carolina want Steve Wilks to be the head coach. Look, I don't know whether Steve Wilks is the guy. I don't know whether Steve Wilks isn't the guy. They haven't done great. He's done a good enough job, Wilks has. But if you got a chance to get a guy that has gone to a Super Bowl in Harbaugh, I think you got to take it. Don't you. So if you were going to, I used to say this on my other show, gun to head, if you were going to ask me, all right, is Harbaugh going to the NFL? My answer is going to be absolutely. Absolutely 100%. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and he is sniffing around. And there have been rumors in Indianapolis going back to the Big Ten title game. There have been rumors that Jim Harbaugh has been talking to Jimmy Irsay. Now, who knows? You know, the whole Jeff Saturday deal may have thrown a wrench into that. I don't know. But what I do know this is where there is smoke, there is fire. And if I am Harbaugh and you want to leave a legacy, the legacy is, hey, look, I beat Ohio State my last 2 times. I got to the college football playoffs 2 years in a row. It's a pretty good legacy and a way to leave. I'm going to show you some disturbing video here of Dana White. Now, Allison Williams talked about Dana White. She did an interview with Dana White, and I think Dana White is probably, for a variety of reasons, one of which is the success of the UFC. I think the people that like that sport love that sport. I've been to a couple UFC events, and I liked it. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed it. It isn't something other than St. Patrick's Day when COVID hit. It isn't something that I set my alarm to. Tell you why St. Patrick's Day when COVID hit, because Dana White had a card from an island that we could bet on and sit around. There was no sports on, but we could watch and bet, and it was easy to do. But Dana White, well, I got to tell you, Dana White made a mistake that I don't know. I do not know whether or not he can come back from this. I think Dana White is big enough. Well, let's show you the video of Dana White slapping his wife slapped him, all that kind of stuff. She slaps him. He slaps her. And then they got to be separated. Now, look, I got to tell you, Dana White has been one of those advocates about not touching women. And that's cool, but he just did. He just did. And people are giving Dana White an excuse because she slapped him first. Did Ray Rice? Did his girlfriend, I'm reading Twitter here, did Ray Rice's girlfriend hit him first? I don't know. I don't know. A lot of people are thinking Dana White cannot come back from this. I mean, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what the deal isn't. I have no idea what happened between them. They say they have been drinking, but Dana White has to be smarter than this. I don't care whether your wife hits you. I've said this forever. I don't care whether she hits you. I don't care whether she slaps you first. I don't care. Now, Dana White is a bazillionaire. Dana White and his wife have said we're good. We'll show you the video again, if you don't mind, Dylan. We'll show you the video again. They're arguing. She slaps him. He slaps her, and she's not backing down. He slaps her again. I mean, this is violent. This is very, very violent. And people can make it racial. People can make it whatever they want. I'm going to make it domestic violence. Look, I like Dana White. He seems like a decent guy. He seems fine. But the truth of the matter is this should never happen. I don't care if you've been drinking. I don't care if you haven't been drinking. Hell, it doesn't matter to me. This should never, ever, ever happen. Now, Dana White isn't a player. Dana White's an owner, and there's a big difference when you own who's disciplining you. I guess the court of public opinion can discipline you, but that is about it. So, look, Dana White did what he did. He's going to suffer the consequences. We'll see what those consequences are, but I'm going to continue to say this. Don't ever lay your hands on a woman. Put your hands in your pocket and take a beating if you have to. All right, Steve Sarkisian. We're a little late to the party here, but Steve Sarkisian, I got to tell you, Steve Sarkisian decided, for whatever the reason, that he was going to be a jackass to a worker. And it's a TV production guy that is literally holding Steve Sarkisian back from getting onto the field. Now, I understand. I do in a certain way. I understand Steve Sarkisian, who is the head guy. He's the coach of Georgia. All right. He's fired up. No, I'm sorry, coach of Texas. He's fired up. And you see it right here. He's fired up. So the guy with the headset is in charge. He puts his hand on Steve Sarkisian, and Steve Sarkisian acts like an idiot. Steve Sarkisian is one of those fake tough guys. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not above back in my day, in my 30s, of being a jackass in that vein and doing those kind of things. But Sarkisian did not need to do this. It's not this guy's fault. This guy just trying to do his job with TV. Now, Sarkisian acting like a tough guy in front of his players. But here's the difference now. Back in the days of Bobby Knight et al., you yell and scream, and all of us are like, yeah, we're with the coach. Nowadays, players see this, and they go, yeah, our coach is an idiot. They do. Like, they don't like swearing, players don't. They don't like this kind of stuff. They'll go out on a football field and they'll fight like crazy, but they don't like seeing adults doing this. They look at you as a coach like you're a complete idiot. Yeah, you're an idiot. And so at the end of the day, Sarkisian showed himself to be an idiot. And I'm not surprised. That's why Sarkisian is Sarkisian. I've never really been the biggest fan. I know we're supposed to be. I know he's Sark. I know he's got, 9 lives, and the USC thing became the Alabama thing, which became the Texas thing. I understand all that. But I got to tell you, this ain't great. I always wanted to know the names of all the janitors. I want to know the names of everybody in the building and treat them right. And there are times, and maybe Sarkisian just made a mistake here. There are times when people make mistakes. But the truth of the matter is, I don't use the term bad look. It's just a jerk being a jerk. Alex Ovechkin owned the Canadians on and off the ice, and after beating them, he posed with the moms of several of the Canadian players. Now, look, Ovechkin's about as old as me. Ovechkin, 172 years old. So, hey, look, he's not going to pose with the wives. He's going to pose with the moms. That's what he's going to do. There he is. Ovechkin just gets in a pile with all the moms of the players. Now, the wives are too young for Ovechkin. And everybody that, I don't know, has any kind of sack on him loves the way Ovechkin partied after winning the Stanley Cup a few years ago. And I got to tell you, I like this too. And the moms look very thrilled to be around the Caps hero. So good for Ovechkin. Look into it what you want. I like it. He's sticking it to them. Just be careful around mothers about what you say about their kids. They'll slice you in bad places. See Elaine Bobbitt or whatever her name is. All right, sports betting became legal. Thank goodness. In the great state of Ohio, where I resigned it for 10 years. Became legal January 1st. And this is the greatest troll job ever. None other, ladies and gentlemen, the great Pete Rose made the first legal bet in the great state of Ohio, and he bet on the Reds to win the World Series. I think this is absolutely awesome. I think this is beautiful. If you can't make fun or you can't throw shade or whatever the cool kids' words are at things like this, I think it is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Before we get to Wokadope, I saved the best, the stupidest for last. I did. I saved the dumbest for last. There is a soccer coach. His name is Greg Burkholder. Greg Burkholder is being investigated. He is the U.S. soccer team's coach. He's the head man. USMTST or whatever it is. Well, 1991 as an 18-year-old, apparently he kicked his wife. He's been married, Rosalind and he have, for 25 years. Why do they even have to answer to that, is what my wife said. Why do they even have to discuss that? It's nobody's business. It's 1991. I'm going to say that again. 1991. As an 18-year-old. So some guy has this. He's trying to blackmail Burkhalter, and U.S. soccer is stupid enough, woke enough, idiotic enough that they have got to go out and act like there is an investigation. They've got to go out and act, ladies and gentlemen, like they care about this. You shouldn't care about this. They've been married for 25 years in an era of super wokeness of, oh my God, we're going to act like we're doing the right thing. This is insane. It's insane that a man, number one, has to address what he did in 1991 as an 18-year-old that didn't result in anything criminal, nothing at all. Been married 25 years to his wife, Rosalind. And now, because he has gained some sort of notoriety, he has to go back 30 plus years and answer for this. Don't answer for it. Tell them all to stick it. It's high time we told idiots that are being idiots to simply stick it. You want to be an idiot? Stick it. Period. That's it. That's all I got. You want to be a jackass? I don't want to hear from you. Stick it. That's it. That's all I got. I got nothing more. Nothing. Zero. Zip. Nada. Nothing more. Nothing. My God. They've been married 25 years. All right. What else we got? Well, let's talk about it. We got Wokadope. Who is our latest Wokadope? Man, I don't understand it. I won't understand it. It's crazy to me why we pediatric gender clinics. I want you to think about that for a second. Pediatric gender clinics. That's where we're at. That's what we got. That's how we're handling kids switching their genders in 2010 or whatever the hell, 2022. This is where we're at in the world that we live in. Gender clinics. Is it amazing or not? Is it incredible or not? It's unbelievable. It really is that this is what we are doing. Look, I got to thank everybody that stayed with us on this show. I do. I got to thank you all because we are growing and growing and growing, and we are getting more and more popular. The show is taking off, and we're very proud of it. But you all sticking with us. I couldn't get to the YouTube chat today because, well, frankly, the internet was down. It wasn't our fault. It was an Xfinity issue. But the truth of the matter is we're going to continue to grow. The truth of the matter is tomorrow we're going to do a better show than we did today. But I got to ask you, gun to head, was Pete Rose's deal awesome or what? Was Pete Rose giving out the first bet the best thing you've seen or what? I'm going to answer yes. I'm going to answer it is freaking awesome. Absolutely awesome. That's what they did. Honest to God, I believe that Pete Rose making the first bet in the state of Ohio January 1st is an incredible troll job. Incredible. Unbelievable. Dana White, put your hands in your damn pockets. It's too late. Hey, by the way, one other thing we didn't get to, PGA golfer Scott Stallings shared a DM, said that he got a Masters invite, or that he's a PGA golfer. There was a different Scott Stallings who got from Georgia, who got Tennessee's Scott Stallings Master invite. Both Scott Stallings are going to join. They're both going to join Outkick 360 coming up here. Their wives, Scott Stallings in Georgia and PGA player Scott Stallings in Tennessee, their wives share the same name. The non-PGA golfer got the invite to the Masters. It's pretty funny. And my friends at Outkick 360 will absolutely have it for you, and it will be glorious. All right. Thanks to everybody who watched today. We much appreciate you. Thanks to everybody that hung with us. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Dylan and Ryan and Davey and everybody involved, Haley, Aaron, Chuck, everybody. Thank you all. Corey, thank you all so much for getting us through this show where we made a mess. We'll see you tomorrow.